Most graduates prepare for questions. The ones that get the jobs prepare for the conversations. And tonight I'm going to show you the difference between what that looks like and how you can move towards preparing for a conversation. I'm Paul Swanwick, 22 years in recruitment, over 1,000 hiring decisions. Let's get to it. An interview panel already knows who you are. They've read your resume, and it's already likely they've had a conversation with the recruiter who's provided them with some feedback and a bit of a brief. You've had a call with HR, somebody who screened the resumes and the candidates. So there's a little bit known about you. There's a resume. The misconception is that the most impressive performance is what gets the job. That's not quite right. The safest candidate gets the job. And what the panel is looking to do is to remove any doubt whatsoever that you are the safest person for that job, i.e., the one who is going to come in and comfortably solve the problems they have. That's why it becomes a conversation versus answering a series of questions. A little aside, because I think it's noticeable how when we ask people questions, especially in an interview scenario, it's either a Q&A session, i.e. I'm the interviewer, I ask them questions, they give me answers, or it becomes a conversation whereby it goes beyond the answer. Questions are fired back at me. When the interviewee asks questions back, it becomes a conversation. This is where the difference is in how people are perceived to be either, yep, they're okay, or, wow, they really gave me the assurance that they are going to be the right person for this job. How do you ask questions? Surely it's just them interviewing you. No, it's the other way around. What you need to do, if you understand what your goals are, is come up with a series of interrogative questions that you can ask along the way. Don't always wait till the end, because if you spot an opportunity during the conversation or during a particular question to ask a question that relates to it, then you must do that, because it changes the tone of how everything works. They suddenly start seeing you as an equal, which is very, very important throughout that process. So what questions can we actually ask, or how do we find out what questions to ask to make this a conversation? We research, and this is where, again, some of the legwork comes in. We've got to look at what might have changed with that company and industry, say in the last 12 months. We can do this by researching ourselves. We can get AI to give us access to articles and news around the world and videos. We can look at LinkedIn. What's the company been posting? Now, most LinkedIn companies don't post a lot, but look at what the people in the company have been posting about or talking about. Look at what events they've attended, see what they've been commenting on. It is a little bit intensive, but it's worth doing. It allows you to formulate questions around what might affect this role, what the outlook might be in the next few years as this role progresses through the organization. And what it'll give you is an opportunity when asked a certain question to then link to one of the questions you have. Try to avoid waiting till the end. If you can ask a question that's relatable to something you've been asked as part of your answer or following your answer, this is where we start to turn it from just a Q&A session into an actual conversation. This is where you start becoming an equal throughout the interview process, rather than just somebody who sat there answering yes and no, or answering I did this, I did that. There's a distinct difference, and it's much more memorable in the minds of the hiring panel when they go off to deliberate around who they want to take forward. A good example of this would be, let's say a simple question is, what are the expansion plans for the future? Okay, it's very generic and it's a very easy question that could be asked of any company. But let's say you did some research. The question could be reframed as this. I saw the announcement from Singapore last quarter. How is that expansion going to affect the workload in this team? And will it change how the role progresses over the next 12 to 24 months? The good thing about that is it shows you've done your research, and it's a very specific question that shows you understand that there might be some link to what's broadly happening in the business and how your role might have to evolve over time to meet those needs. That sort of thing, that kind of change in question, in tone, in research, automatically positions you ahead of pretty much everybody else. Other questions can come from what you want out of the role. Goal setting before an interview is a very important process because it allows you time to really hone in and think about what you want to ask from these people to ensure that if things do progress, that it's good for you as well as them. You'll have an idea of what you want to learn, what you want to be exposed to, whether it's company type, whether it's industry, whether it's a leadership type, whether it's learning a particular set of skills around technical, whether it's working with a particular product or customer base or certain system or certain software, or whatever it is. You'll have an idea of what you want over the next 12 months, 36 months, maybe even the next 5 years. So what questions do you need to ask to understand if it's the right role for you? These will form some of the questions at the end. And the good thing about this is most of this probably won't have been covered during the interview. It also looks good because you've sat there and really thought about what it is you want. Again, I will say, try to avoid making them generic. During the goal setting hour and hour and a half you have prior to the interview, look at what these people are doing on LinkedIn. Look at what they're talking about and try to link maybe something they've talked about, commented on, or you could even say something like, okay, I've noticed that in recent years, there's been quite a few promotions from people who started in the last 3 years. That's quite exciting. Is it a cultural thing where you're looking to give people internal opportunities, or do you much prefer to go outside? Because it looks quite promising from someone who's ambitious and wants to learn through an organization rather than having to chop and change companies to get the experience I want. That's a great question. Goal setting before an interview is very important. It allows you to be a lot more specific with other questions too. So again, a lot of people might go on AI and say, give me 10 questions I could ask at the end of an interview. And they'll be very generic because AI doesn't know what your goals are. It doesn't know what you really want out of the interview, but it can give you generic questions. The problem is everyone else will do that too. So here's how you make it different and stand out. Give yourself an hour or two before the interview. And I mean a day or two before the interview, not the day of. And really think about, in line with your goals, in line with what you want from your next job, size of company, growth path, product, culture, how they're developing. Are they looking at new technology? Are they going into new markets? What's the leadership culture that you want? Do you want to work with certain types of software? Do you want to develop a certain technical expertise? Is leadership something that's of importance to you? All these things, what's important, write down how you're going to find that out. What questions are you going to ask? And do your research again. So look at what's happening in the business and relate that back to what you need to know. Practice those questions. And when you go in, ask them at the end. And I can tell you, if they're researched and they link research that you've done to the question, you are going to look so much more impressive than the people who just ask base generic questions. But also, it shows that you know what you want. You are somebody who has clear thought about what they're trying to do with their career and with this interview. That, when people go away and deliberate, will look amazing. And it will automatically put you ahead of most candidates who just rely on what AI has told them or a basic generic list of questions that could be asked of any company. So the hiring panel is looking at 3 things. Most candidates prepare for the first one. What they're looking for, firstly, can you do the job? And that's great. We all prepare for this one. That's a base technical competency, and that's probably the most base thing. However, the second thing they're looking for is, does this candidate fit the team culture? Are they going to work well with others? And this is where they start asking questions around, how you've dealt with conflict, what your thoughts are on previous colleagues, how you talk about them, and, generally your behaviors. This is where we get behavioral questions. So how you deal with certain situations. That's assessing team fit. And then the third thing, which is an overall thing, is this person a low risk hire? Have you eliminated all doubt that you are the right hire? Not the best hire, not the most impressive candidate, but the right hire. Those three things will be assessed. And again, it's worth thinking about, these are the things I've got to ensure I impress with during the interview. If they see these three things, I will probably get hired. Not all the time, but it makes it much more likely. So again, can I do the job? Will I fit the team and culture? Am I a low risk hire? Interviews for junior people are something you don't do often. It's something you might do a lot, I don't know. But my experience is it's something you do and you're learning along the way. So one of the most important things is to do a post-interview review. And this allows us to do two things. Firstly, we can assess what we thought went right. It's great to do that. It gives you confidence, and it also lets you enjoy it. Enjoy the fact that some things that I prepared for went right. Now, inevitably, there may be one or two things you feel you could have done better. So write those down, but then write what you would do differently next time, and then let it go. If you feel you had a bad interview, that's okay. Again, go through the process and write down what went wrong. Reflect on what happened before the interview in terms of your preparation, your goal setting. Was that as good as it could be? And then come up with an action plan for what you're going to do differently next time, and then let it go. Leaving an interview behind is probably one of the most underrated skills any job seeker can have. You may end up having a lot of different interviews as you go through your job search. Each one carries a weight of emotion, especially when it's a no as well. It carries that weight of rejection. Actively processing that and moving on from it is going to be very good for your mindset, good for your mental health, and it will really help you maintain the momentum and learning throughout the process. So remember, panels, interviewers are looking for the right fit and the lowest risk hire, not the most impressive candidate. This occurs when you prepare, when you set goals, when you do the work up front. Turn it from a Q&A session into a conversation. That's the difference between the candidate who keeps getting rejected and the one who gets the offer. If you want to dig deeper into this, Career Hijack, the link is below in the comments.